Hola chicos! Today we're going to do a quick review of the subjunctive. So if you will please take out your Unit 4 guided notes and fill them in. El subjuntivo. Remember that the subjunctive is the tense that we use to express uncertainty and doubt. So it looks a little bit different in Spanish. The process that we're going to go through to form the subjunctive is, of course, take the yo. By that I mean the yo form present tense. We're going to drop the O, and then we're going to add the opposite ending. And by opposite ending, I mean for your AR verbs, we're going to add the endings with E. And for your ER-IR verbs, we're going to add the endings with A. So a couple of verbs that you want to be really careful about. Cargar-sar verbs, of course, are going to experience spelling changes in the subjunctive. C to QU, G to GU, and Z to C. And then verbs like proteger and elegir, you can see these in your notes, they're going to have that G to J change happening, just to maintain the original pronunciation of our infinitive. Alright, then we had the dishes. The dishes are your irregulars in the subjunctive. And I'm just giving you the yo form or the la usted form, because remember those are the same, so just filling them in as a quick refresher here. The dishes are dar, which is day with an accent. It of course has the accent to differentiate it from the preposition de, that means of or from. Ir is going to be vaya. Ser is going to be sea, C and Sean. Haber is going to be haya. Estar is going to be este. Again, make sure you have the accent to differentiate it from the demonstrative este, which means this. Remember, this and these have T's. And then saber is going to be sepa. Okay, chicos, I want to take a quick step back and look at what the subjunctive really is in comparison to some of the other verb tenses that we've talked about so far in Spanish. So here's the deal. The subjunctive isn't really a tense. It's actually a mood. So there are these two moods in Spanish. And moods are bigger than tenses. They're overarching, above the tenses. And the two moods are the indicative and the subjunctive. Now, generally the indicative expresses certainty. So these are things that we know are happening or happened or will happen. So the tenses that fall under the indicative are, of course, your present tense, preterite tense, imperfect, future. And then there are subjunctive tenses. Right now we're focusing on present subjunctive. That's the whole opposite ending thing. But there's also a past subjunctive that we'll learn a little bit later in the year. And so the subjunctive tenses are the ones that express uncertainty. These are things that we're not sure, maybe we have some doubt about whether they are happening or happened or will happen. And so what happens is, if there's a subject change in our sentence, we're going to end up incorporating both of these moods in Spanish. So the indicative verb would be probably in this case just regular present tense. And then we see the verb or the word que, that little connecting word. And then when our subject changes, that's when we see our subjunctive verb. So some examples. I want you to come with me. There's no question that I want that. So we see quiero in the indicative or regular present tense. Following the que, we have a subject change. I want that you do something. Well, if I want you to do it, I don't necessarily know that you're going to do it. So there's some uncertainty here with that second verb, vengas. Therefore, we put that one in the subjunctive. Quiero que tú vengas conmigo. In the second sentence, it says, I hope that you guys behave yourselves, or behave well. The first verb, of course, is regular present tense, present indicative. Then we have the que and a subject change. I hope that you guys. Now, it's certain that I hope that, but it's uncertain that you're actually going to behave yourselves. And so we see that second verb taking the subjunctive form because of that uncertainty. Here's a quick video that you can watch to help improve your understanding of what the subjunctive mood is all about.
Hello, this is Ben from Notes in Spanish, and I've got something I hope very interesting for you today. It's Ben's super simple Spanish subjunctive secret. Now, this is something that I learnt right at the beginning of the time when I was learning Spanish, and it really changed the way I was able to understand and learn the subjunctive forever. So I really hope that it helps. So as you know, in Spanish, there are two types of verbs, the indicative and the subjunctive. These are called, moods or voices. The indicative voice looks a bit like this. Te amo, andamos, fui, he comido. These are the verbs or the mood that you learn right at the beginning when you're learning Spanish, what most people might call normal verbs. Now, we also have the subjunctive mood or voice. And the verbs change. They look like this. Te amé, andemos instead of andamos, fuera instead of fui, and haya comido instead of he comido. So these are all examples of verbs in the subjunctive voice or mood. Now, lots of people are terrified by the subjunctive. They think, how on earth can I really understand what it's all about and why I need to use it? Well, that's where crazy Liliana's secret comes in. Because when I say it's Ben's secret, it's actually Liliana's. Now, Liliana was this Argentinian teacher that I had in my first year in Madrid. And when we were right at the beginning of the, pre-intermediate stage of learning Spanish, actually, she told us one day that we were going to learn some subjunctive. Now, there were about 3 of us in the class, and a look of horror crossed our face, but she said, don't worry. She got out her pen, and on the board, she drew a picture of a very normal-looking person who looked a bit like this. This, she said, is Mr. Indicative, Mr. Normal. Indicative verbs are just like him. They're business-like, they're normal, they're based in reality, totally run-of-the-mill. Then she scrubbed him off the board and she took out a different pen and she drew somebody completely different. A hippie dude. She said, here is Mr. Subjunctive. Mr. Subjunctive is a complete hippie. He lives in a world of sort of hypothetical situations. He's always unsure about things. He's philosophizing the whole time. He's always dwelling in unreality, kind of a different dimension, let's say. That, she said, is Mr. Subjunctive. A hippie dude, philosophizing, hypothetical situations, an alternative reality. That, she said, is going to help you understand the subjunctive. And you know what? It really did.
So turn over to the other side of your guided notes. Before we start talking about when to use the subjunctive versus when to use the indicative, I want to just focus on all of the different reasons that we might employ the subjunctive mood or tenses. So we're going to be using this acronym, you weirdo, to decide if and when to use the subjunctive. So if you'll just fill in that left column and fill in what you weirdo stands for. So the U is for uncertainty. If we're not sure if something's going to happen, then we use the subjunctive. The W stands for wishes and wants. If I wish that something were to happen, or if I want someone to do something, then I'm not sure that they're going to do it. There's some uncertainty implied there. The third one is emotion. This one can be a little bit tricky, but if I'm happy that something happens, or if I'm surprised that something is happening, then we're also going to use the subjunctive. The fourth one is impersonal expressions, and we'll talk a little bit more about what this means later, but these were the phrases like es importante que. It's important that someone do something. When we use phrases like that, we don't necessarily know that that person is going to take our kind of recommendation, so we would also use the subjunctive. Fifth one is recommendations. If I recommend that you do something, again, there's uncertainty about whether you will actually do it. Next to last, we have doubt. So if I doubt that something's going to happen, or if it's doubtful, then we would also use the subjunctive. There's some uncertainty implied there. And then the final one is Ojala. Do you remember what Ojala means? Remember that ojala comes from the Arabic origins for Ojala. So originally it meant God willing, and now it's kind of evolved into just meaning hopefully something will happen. So when we use ojala, we're also kind of unsure about whether that action will take place or not, so we use the subjunctive. So today we're going to fill in just a couple of spots on your You Weirdo chart there, and we're going to kind of jump around a little bit throughout this unit until we get the entire chart full. So we're starting with the W in You Weirdo, which is wishes or wants. You definitely want to write down these key verbs: desear, esperar, and querer. Desear, of course, means to wish. Esperar means to hope. And querer means to want. So anytime we use these verbs in the indicative, they will be followed by a verb in the subjunctive. So the example here is, she wants her son to behave well. Or she wants that, remember we have to have that K, her son, behave well. First verb is just regular present tense. Second verb has the opposite ending because we're not sure if he's actually going to behave well or not. Second example, my cousins wish that I would come and play with them. So if we're writing out this sentence, we would say, mis primos desean, regular present tense, present indicative for the first verb, because there's no doubt about the fact that they wish. But they wish that I would come. There's doubt about the verb venir, right? They don't know if I'm coming to play with them or not. So take the yo, drop the o, add the opposite ending. Que yo venga a jugar con ellos. Desean que yo venga. First verb, of course, is in the indicative, and then the verb following the K is in the subjunctive. Second example here says, you hope that Anita idealizes the generous celebrities, right? So we're going to start with tú. Esperas, first verb just in the regular present indicative. Que Anita, there we have our K and our change of subject. Notice idealizar is a czar verb, so we're going to start with the yo, drop the o, but since it's a czar verb, we're going to change that z to a c, so it becomes idealice a las celebridades generosas. So same thing here, our first verb is in the regular present indicative. Esperas, you hope. There's no doubt that you hope. The doubt is about whether or not she will actually idealize generous celebrities, right? So idealice is in the subjunctive. Okay, and the last piece that we're going to add into your notes today is ojala. So all the way down at the very bottom of your You Weirdo chart, fill in this little blurb here about ojala. Ojala, of course, comes from the Arabic origins for Ojala, meaning God willing or hopefully. And we always see ojala followed by the subjunctive. It's another one of those trigger words, just like the verbs that we saw previously. So our examples here are Ojala que no llueva mañana. Llueva, of course, is in the subjunctive. We're saying hopefully it doesn't rain tomorrow, but we're not sure if it's going to rain or not. Okay, so the verb that has that uncertainty goes in the subjunctive. Second example, Ojalá que tengamos tiempo para estudiar. Hopefully we have time to study. Again, tengamos, we've used that opposite ending there in the subjunctive because we're not sure or not if we'll actually have time to study.